Hi, here's a brief video on building a counterflow wort chiller. Here's my material list: 5/8 garden hose, 3/8 copper pipe. I've got a couple of T's in there, 1/2 inch, and there are 2 compression couplings that reduce from 1/2 inch to 3/8. I've got some pipe clamps, 4, and a solder and flex kit here, or flux I should say, and I have some 1/2 inch solid pipe and a couple of tools. You need a handsaw, propane torch. So the first thing you want to do is cut 3-inch sections off of your 1/2 inch rigid pipe, and we'll need 6 sections. You'll see in a moment where they end up being. I just put some cloth between the vise and the copper pipe to protect it. You'll also want a metal file and some sandpaper to clean up the cut edges. So this is the 6 pieces, 3 inches in length each, and the T's, and I'm just dry fitting them up before I solder them. I was going to include a solder instruction, but that's easy enough to find on other YouTube videos. And voila, there's the 2 T's complete. Now take your garden hose and cut the end off at about between 6 and 8 inches. So this is 5/8 inside, which corresponds to the outside of the 1/2 inch pipe. Makes a nice connection. This is a 50-foot hose because it's all I could find, although my 3/8 copper here that I've straightened out the best I can is 20 feet long. So after you straighten the copper and the garden hose out, you just feed it in the best you can. I've heard of some people taping the copper end and using dishwash detergent, or sorry, hand soap or dishwasher soap to help guide it through, but I didn't bother and it worked fine. So here you want to stick it out past the end of the garden hose so that you've got about 3/4 of an inch from the 1/2 inch copper to the garden hose, and then the 3/8 copper is sticking out about 1.5 to 2 inches. And then this is finding the other end of the copper pipe, or copper tubing I should say. And so again, I'm just going by feel. I want about 1.5 inch overhang from my soldered T, and then I want about a 3/4 inch overhang to 1 inch from my garden hose to my 1/2 inch end of the copper T. And as you can see, you'll need an X-Acto knife as well. So there's my 3/4 inch overhang and the 1.5 inch overhang on the far end. And I'm just dry fitting it here. And you'll want to then wrap it around something round. I used a yoga bolster, but really anything you find. I've heard of guys using a keg, and I've heard them using around their mash tun, just something round with the whatever sort of diameter you want. And so you want to grab your pipe clamp, put it on the garden hose first, and then get one of your T's on so that it's penetrating the garden hose between 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch, and tighten it up. And now you'll want to take the 6-inch section that you cut off and put it on the T, other end of the T. Tighten that up. And it's just me doing the other end. In hindsight, I would have not, when I made the second cut of the garden hose at the 20-foot end, I would have cut it flush and then rolled it and then shortened the garden hose, taken another 6 inches off or so. But this ended up working out okay. So this is the compression reducer. 1/2 inch on one end, 3/8 on the other. Now you could also just use a simple cheap copper reducer, but the reason I went with this compression reducer is so that in the future I could remove it if I want to make a counterflow wort chiller that's longer than 20 feet. So if this isn't going to be sufficient, or if I just want some more efficient cooling, I could end up making like a 50-footer but still use my fittings. Whereas if I soldered on a 1/2 inch to 3/8 reducer right here, there's much less flexibility in removing it. And the other reason I'm doing this is I'm thinking about possibly kitting these, where you just simply buy the 2 T's, or build the 2 T's, and then all you'd need to do is buy the copper tubing and the garden hose, and you won't need to solder, because that's kind of the only thing that some people are reluctant to do, or they don't want to invest in either the propane torch or the solder, which is very expensive. Here I'm just tie wrapping 3 loops together, about every 3 in 3 sections. So every 120 degrees roughly, putting on another tie wrap. And then on the second round I went and overlapped 1 loop and got the next 3 down. And just some snips here to clean up the ends, and the counterflow wort chiller is complete.